Welcome to another week of Case Files
with Kat
and Ashley.
Oh yeah. Ooh. Okay, I'm losing my marbles today.
I'm sorry.
Just gonna tell you. You know when like you know when you kind of like are you haven't slept enough, and then you get kind of like a little more hyper, you know, like you feel kind of like you have no sleep.
Yeah.
So then it just kind of makes you a little wackier.
And then your anxiety kicks in like 300 times.
And 300, yes. So I'm having one of those days. Lacking sleep, super high anxiety, and yeah, I'm ready to party. Let's go.
Okay. I don't know that it's gonna be a party, but
party.
I can breathe and stuff this time. So
yeah.
I feel like for those that watch Friends, it's like the one where Phoebe gets sick and she can, like, her voice changes and she sings and she loves the way her voice sounds when she's sick. So when she's better, she tries to get sick again. And I was like listening to our episode, I was like, oh, I do sound like a whole new person.
You sound, yeah.
Anyways, I had a double ear infection, a sinus infection, and something else. I don't know.
I think you need to eat the microphone or something.
Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it was just...
Sorry.
That's okay. That's
so
okay.
I had all kinds of things happening, but I'm fine now.
So did you go to the doctor and they said you have all kinds of things, or you were just like getting over everything?
Oh, no. I had an exceptionally bad day. Like the coughing was hurting, the pressure behind my eyeball, like my eye felt like it was going to pop out. So I couldn't wait to get into the doctor. Like my doctor's booked so far in advance because she just has babies a lot. And so she's just constantly pregnant. I'm just saying, okay, birthing. Like nothing against people who have babies, right? But she seems to have a lot of them. So she's out a lot. So then her available. Anyways, I love her when she's available. That's why I don't switch before someone's like, well, why don't you just get another doctor? Anyway, so I went to an urgent care.
I have a great doctor, but go ahead.
And I went to urgent care and they're like, do your ears not hurt? And I'm like, well, they do now. Like, what?
Now that you mention it, ow!
They're like, your ears are so red, and they are like inflamed. And
Ashley,
and
this was after
I guess
we
that
recorded?
was why they were. Yeah, I guess that's why they weren't popping and stuff. So I had an infection in like the middle tube. I don't know how to say the word. Anyways, so I had a double ear infection and the sinus infection. They put me on all kinds of antibiotics and like this pill for coughing. And anyways,
Ashley, that was after we recorded. You went, oh my.
I had that for like 3 weeks.
I know. So you were sick all that time, but then that was what it was. You were just,
I guess. I don't know if that's what it started as, because when it started, I didn't have the sinus stuff. I just had
you're just making me need a
congestion.
Blow my nose or something. I don't know.
I mean, I wasn't contagious.
No, I know. I'm like, oh, that's so crazy.
But yeah.
So how's your dog?
I take her back tomorrow. I took her in last week. Mm-hmm. They took the splint off and she had pressure sores, poor baby. Aww. So they left the splint off. So and she has to have this special shampoo every night. It has like antibacterial stuff. Anyway, she goes back tomorrow for x-rays to see if her leg is fully healed or if they need to put the stuff back on her. So
oh man, poor thing.
We're just having a fun time in my house. So
that doesn't sound like a fun time.
Well, you know, it's an expensive time, I'll tell you that.
Oh my gosh, I know. Yeah, you know, my aunt, this totally just made me think of it. Your doctor always being pregnant. I thought my aunt was always pregnant. And then like there would be a new kid that showed up at our house and then she'd be pregnant again. And then like there'd be a new kid. And so I didn't realize that the kid actually came out of her and that she then had a new one. I mean, you know, she was just always pregnant.
What I love about my doctor is one time I was there and she pulls out this chart and it's a birth control chart, right? And she's like all excited and she was like, no one ever wants to talk about my birth control chart. And it was like the different birth control things and like the effects. And then when she had her fifth kid, I was like, which one are you on? Because that's not the one I want to be on. Like, maybe this is why no one's excited about your chart, man. Literally, I think she's had like 5 kids since I started seeing her.
Did you tell her that? I would have. I'd be like, no. I'm going to be honest.
No, I haven't seen her since the 5th kid. Because I went to the urgent care and stuff.
Oh, man.
She's a truly great doctor when you can get in to see her. But yeah, I just thought it was funny that she just had her 5th kid. And she's like all excited about this birth control chart.
Oh my God. She's like, I can't use it, but you can. She just wants a big family. That's amazing. Oh my God, I love that story.
Yeah.
Great story, Ashley.
Good for people who love to have kids. I'm not one of those people. I love my little besties. I can leave them in North Carolina and just visit.
Your fur babies.
Not, well, my fur babies, but I meant my besties, my little nieces.
Yeah. Oh, you call them your besties?
Yeah, they're my little besties. We have little rubber duckies that say BFFs. I got them for when I was here last time.
Oh, I love that. Oh, I love it. Okay. So what do you got? I know we're just chit chatting, you know.
So this story actually takes place in the city that is next to where my little besties live. Mm-hmm. Everything okay over there?
No, you keep going.
So, I'm sorry, guys. I'm being adjusted. Okay.
Sorry. You are being adjusted.
Okay. Anyway, so this story takes place near where my brother and sister-in-law and all of them live. And I wanted to do this because it came up when I was there. There was an update to one of the people that were on trial for it. And I like doing these little cases that aren't like really well known because I feel like so many of the well-known cases have tons of documentaries, ton of podcasts. Yeah. And then you've got these other victims that it doesn't really leave the town they were in. And I feel like all victims should have their memory, talked about and stuff. So anyways, when I was there, they told me about this story and I did some research. And so that's what I'm going to talk about tonight.
Okay.
I don't have to cough until I get here. And I think it's because you burn sage and your house is just like trying to get rid of me.
Burn sage. It's been a long time. Okay, maybe I need to do that.
Anyways, okay. So this story is about Brittany Willis. She was a 17-year-old high school student living in Wilson, North Carolina. 2 days shy of her 18th birthday, on June 28th, 2004, she was kidnapped, raped, and murdered. Brittany was described
from her house?
No, I'll talk about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Brittany was described as a bright, intelligent, honorable, and a promising young woman. Oh. She had a huge passion for soccer, really all sports, but soccer was like the main one. She had played her entire life. She started playing with the Wilson Recreation Soccer League at a young age. In high school, she became a standout all-conference soccer player for the Hunt High School Warriors during her junior and senior year. She was the team captain in her senior year. She had earned the distinction of being identified as an all-academic athlete every year of her high school career.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Brittany was also a member of the volleyball team where she was honored as best all around.
Jeez.
She also competed as a cross country runner on the high school team and earned the Sportsmanship Award. In addition to excelling in athletics, Brittany was in the National Honor Society.
Jesus.
Was a key club officer, a singer in the school chorus. She was a Fellowship of Christian Athletes member. She was also involved in the Student Government Association and was the Pepsi Scholar Athlete each year she was at James Hunt High. She was planning to attend Peace College in Raleigh, North Carolina when she graduated. Excuse me, guys. She attended First United Methodist Church and was active in their youth program. But in addition to all of the other things that Brittany did, she also volunteered at the Wesley Shelter, which was a homeless shelter for women and children and a shelter for women of domestic violence. So this young woman was an all-star athlete. She was genuinely a good person. She volunteered. She did all of these things with her church. She was just, from what I have read from statements and interviews, just truly an amazing, amazing person. On June 28th, Brittany was returning a high school graduation present at a gift shop in Wilson. In a completely horrific, random act of violence, she was abducted from the shops at Brentwood from the parking lot and driven in her own SUV to a field where she was raped and shot once in the back and once in the head. Totally random. This victim, I mean, the suspect didn't have a reason for picking her. Just saw her, of course, and then did what I just said: robbed her, raped her, shot her, kidnapped her. The following day, her body would be found in a construction field off of Brentwood Drive in Wilson. 4 days after they found her body, 3 suspects were arrested. Kenneth Maurice Meeks Jr., who was 16, James Arthur Johnson, who was 19, and Julian Tyson Deans, who was 21. I'm so sorry. Kenneth was charged with first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping.
All of them?
This is Kenneth right now.
Okay. But this is like, they were all charged?
All 3 were charged.
Wow. Okay.
But it's a very interesting chain of events that happens. Okay. So Kenneth was charged with first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, first-degree rape, first-degree sexual offense, crimes against nature, and shoplifting.
Damn.
James was charged with first-degree murder, first-degree kidnapping, robbery with a dangerous weapon, and first-degree rape. Julian, who was the 21-year-old, was charged with acting as an accessory after the fact to the murder because he tried to create an alibi for James.
Oh, no.
So technically Julian wasn't there, but he lied and made an alibi. So allegedly.
Oh.
Okay.
Like, actually was with me all night, officer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I'm only bringing up the race of those accused of committing this crime because it plays a part in the case and some of the major issues that unfold later on, okay? So both Kenneth and James were black. Julian and Brittany were white. And this becomes a huge factor in one of their cases, in one of the suspects' cases.
Kenneth was the first one to
they all 3 were arrested at the same time. All 3 were charged at the same time.
But the first one that you read was Kenneth.
Kenneth, yes.
Okay.
He was the 16-year-old.
What's crimes against nature?
I'll
look it up. I didn't know if you knew.
I didn't. I assumed. Let's see. It says. I should have looked that up in advance, but it's like an unnatural act. So intercourse between, like an unnatural sexual intercourse. It says it's a legal term for sexual behavior that is considered unnatural or indecent. So maybe the rape itself, like another word for that, or she was dead, or
yeah. Okay. I thought that might be it, but I was like, what was it? Was there an animal there? Like, that just seems strange that the other guy didn't get charged with that. So, okay.
Yeah, all 3 did not get charged with the same thing. Okay. So, I'm going to discuss each of the 3 males that were involved separately because there were major debate, racial issues, and sentencing issues with some of them. And if I blend them together, I think it'll just get too confusing.
Oh, okay.
And so the first one I'm going to talk about is Kenneth Meeks. That's the 16-year-old. That's the one that was charged with all of those things.
All the crazy things, yes. Okay.
Now, Kenneth Meeks actually pled guilty to first-degree murder on April 10th, 2006. Didn't try to fight it.
Really?
And a Superior Court judge, Jerry R. Tillett, sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole at the age of 16.
Oh.
Now, again, Kenneth pled guilty. He knew what he did.
Okay.
I mean, they did try to get him a lesser sentence, but they didn't fight that he was guilty.
Okay.
So at that time, the assistant district attorney was Bill Wolf, and he prosecuted the case, which included DNA evidence linking Meeks to Brittany and to her vehicle. So there was no denying that Kenneth Meeks was there and involved.
Okay.
Now, his attorney, Terry Alford, told the court the defendant came from a good family but had become involved with marijuana. He said his clients... said his client's playing of the video game Grand Theft Auto was, and I'm quoting here, definitely involved in this case.
Y'all, no.
I'm just telling you right now, I play lots of violent video games. I have played Grand Theft Auto, and I have never kidnapped, raped, and murdered somebody.
But you do have a true crime podcast.
I do have a true crime podcast, but that's not hurting anyone but our listeners.
That isn't. It's not. And They can choose to
and they
leave.
chose to be here. Okay.
They must like it.
But his client, but the attorney, I'm sorry, the client did say that he did this crime because of getting involved with marijuana and playing Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, that just makes me uncomfortable. Okay.
It makes me so angry.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't, I don't know.
I know.
Anyways, as a part of his plea agreement, the state dismissed all other charges against him. So since this conviction, Meeks has been serving his sentence in state prisons. So the following comes from a newspaper called the Wilson Times. And I'm just reading this directly as it says.
Okay.
In the 2012 case, Miller versus Alabama, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that sentencing a minor to life without parole violates the Eighth Amendment's prohibition on cruel
and unusual.
Cruel and unusual punishment. In the same year, the state of North Carolina enacted a law in line with the High Court's ruling that prevents 16 and 17-year-olds from being sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. The law allows juvenile defendants to be sentenced to life imprisonment with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Our legislators changed it where anyone who was 16 or 17, under 18, could not be sentenced to life without the possibility of parole without having a hearing to determine whether that was an appropriate sentence, said current Assistant District Attorney John Clark. So Meek's attorney at that time filed a motion for appropriate relief in Meek's case on July 12, 2013. The motion was granted by then Superior Court Judge Milton F. Fitch Jr. The motion listed 5 reasons that Kenneth Meeks shouldn't receive a life sentence, which accompanied by supporting case law. I don't know what those 5 reasons were. I tried to find them.
Dang.
It asked the court to sentence Meeks to life with the possibility of parole. I imagine it was something like he was young, he's been rehabilitated, he was on drugs, something along those.
Something he might have done. He finished, classes and.
I just imagine those would be the reasons.
Yeah.
So Meeks since that motion was filed, Meeks received a new attorney, Robert C. Slaughter III, which was a personal injury and criminal lawyer.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Slaughter petitioned to have the case heard. So resident Superior Court Judge L. Lamont Wiggins set the hearing in Wilson County Criminal Superior Court. We are going to have a hearing to determine if he should be sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, which he already has, or he should be getting life with the possibility of parole, Clark said. What that means is if he was given life with parole, he would be given a sentence of 25 years with parole. So after 25 years, he would be eligible to be on parole. So he has been in custody since June or July of 2004. So that means he would probably not be eligible for release until 2029 if the judge rules that. Clark said that the state would oppose this motion because they wanted him to stay in jail. So, of course, we're going to fight and try to say that, yes, the appropriate punishment here was life without parole. Clark said the defense is going to argue the other, that they are going to submit a number of factors. One of the biggest ones that is included in the list is whether he can be rehabilitated or not. Okay. So, Kenneth, now 37, is housed at Craven Correctional Institution. He is following his conviction in 2006. Meeks was housed at the Western Youth Institution in Morganton before being moved to Nash Correctional Institution in Nashville. Over the years, Meeks has been in prison. He has had at least 13 infractions.
Wow.
The infractions include fighting, involvement with a gang or security risk group, weapon possession, disobeying orders, possession of an audio, video, or image device, a high-risk act, possession of...
what's that?
I'll explain in a minute.
Oh, okay.
Possession of contraband, and misuse, unauthorized use of a phone or mail. So a high-risk act can be any of the following according to North Carolina. Assault, which would be throwing liquids, spitting on a staff member, assaulting a staff with the intent to sexually assault them, which I think is interesting since he was in there for rape. Fighting, which is fighting with weapons or engaging in a physical confrontation that results in medical attention. Possession of unauthorized substances, which is possessing, manufacturing, selling, or using unauthorized substances, alcohol, or other intoxicants. refusing a drug test,
But they all do that.
participating in gangs, bribery, unauthorized recording devices, setting fires, possessing explosive, or creating hazardous conditions. Those are all considered high-risk acts.
Okay. I mean, I watched Orange is the New Black. Like, they had all kinds of contraband.
I don't know that we should base Meek's prison on Orange is the New Black.
Yep. I'm just saying.
I just feel with those lists of infractions, to say he's rehabilitated is a little extreme.
Sure, but I also think to say that there is no other prisoner doing all of those things is not, he could have been singled out. All I'm saying is we shouldn't clutch our pearls over the things that he could potentially have done because. I just think
he should be in prison for life because he kidnapped, raped, and murdered her.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes,
not because he committed a high-risk act in prison.
Yeah. Like, okay, you made alcohol. Okay, I would too. All right, so let me just,
Yeah. Currently, Meeks has custody status of medium and is housed within the regular prison population.
Medium?
So his status is medium. Like, he's not in a high-risk prison.
Oh, okay.
But he's not in, like, the whatever
he's
low security. He's in medium security.
Yeah,
he's in a regular prison.
Okay.
He's not isolated or any of that kind of stuff.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So these other two cases, mainly the next one, is where the racial stuff really comes into play, and it really divided the town of Wilson, and it was a really big deal. So the other two men involved in the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Brittany had prolonged dealings with the court system, and their cases have since been disposed. Now, like I said, the racial issues I mentioned earlier pretty much all surround the trial of James Johnson. He was the 19-year-old who was also charged with the kidnapping, the rape,
and the murder?
a weapon.
No?
Yeah, he was charged with all of that. They said he also had a weapon.
Okay.
Now, please note that when I read these things, I'm reading directly from articles and some quotes from the family. When I talk about Johnson, I am in the NA, AACP and the racial issues. These are not my personal opinions, okay? These are what was happening from those people at the time.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying for our listeners.
All right.
The court cases for Johnson they started in 2006 and they went on for years, which really upset the family because his case and the Dean case, they went on for 3, 4, 5 years, some of them longer. Okay, anyways, they just wanted justice for their daughter.
Okay.
So in 2008, James Johnson, 22 at the time, he was 19 when all of this happened. So this has already been 2 years before he goes on trial. His attorney was trying to get his trial moved from Wilson because of the emotions and the publicity generated on both sides of the case. However, that attempt was unsuccessful. Kenneth Meeks implicated Johnson in Brittany's death, but later recanted this statement in a 2007 letter to the Wilson Daily Times. Now, this letter it's what really started off this public debate as to Johnson's guilt or innocence, which is one factor in why the trials got drug out for so long and why the NAACP was fighting so hard for him.
Okay.
In the statement to the newspaper, Meeks said, "If I would have never been stupid enough to do what I did, he would not have been put in that situation." Meeks wrote it after reading the newspaper and seeing how they kept putting Johnson down when he was trying to build himself up and move on from this situation. In the letter, Meeks said that holding Johnson was a crime in itself. Johnson, he denied from the beginning being involved in this crime whatsoever.
Oh.
He admitted to helping clean up evidence, like wipe down fingerprints, but he maintained that he did this under duress at the time. He said that he did wipe off fingerprints from the SUV, but that's because Meeks showed him a gun and threatened to kill him. Johnson went to the Wilson police 3 days later. According to the court documents, Meeks had said that this is why he initially blamed Johnson and told him that Johnson helped him with the whole thing. The kidnapping, the murder, the rape, all of that. So they didn't actually have evidence that Johnson did anything. They were going off Kenneth Meeks' confession. That's literally all they had.
Yeah.
So, again, no evidence tied Johnson to this case. He's been in jail this entire time, awaiting trial. At the original time that this all happened in 2004, Johnson had no criminal history. He had recently graduated high school, and he was preparing to go to college on a soccer scholarship.
Oh, that's so heartbreaking.
He claims he knew nothing about Brittany's death until Meeks picked him up at his house and told him about it as they drove away. At the time, Johnson was working that summer as a bagger at Food Lion. He had recently graduated from high school, and he was preparing to start classes in the fall at Lewisburg College. He says that day, his new acquaintance, Kenneth Meeks, arrived at his home in an SUV that he didn't recognize. They drove to the construction site where Johnson says that Meeks showed him Brittany's body. Johnson said he was terrified and scared enough to drive with Meeks to a nearby car wash and clean up the SUV that he later learned belonged to Brittany. At the time, again, he didn't know, like, on the way there, he didn't know any of this. But, like, you got to think, like, this man picked him up, shows him a dead body, threatens him with the gun. Like, what is he supposed to do? You know what I mean? Like, he just killed somebody, so, like, he could kill me, right? And so Meeks would tell authorities that Johnson participated in the crimes, leading them to charge Johnson with murder. Johnson would remain in jail for the next 3 years.
Oh, poor kid.
So without Johnson going to the police, investigators might not have even solved the case. And this is exactly the point that his attorney was trying. His attorney was Irving Joyner, and that was the point that they were trying to make, is that he came to the police. He told the police what happened. Yes, 4 days late, but he came and told you. So Irving Joyner
was probably so scared.
Right. Irving Joyner went on to say that Johnson's actions did not in any way cause harm to Brittany, and said that Johnson did the right thing, even if it took him some time to do so. He was probably scared. He was probably trying to figure out what the hell to do.
The police would have never known.
Right. In 2008, Johnson filed complaints against the original attorney he had, not the Irving Joyner, but his original attorney. He filed a grievance with the North Carolina State Bar against Johnny Gaskins. Gaskins was one of the two court-appointed attorneys representing Johnson until December 2006. Gaskins was dropped from the case when prosecutors decided that they were not going to seek the death penalty. But while he was his lawyer, in an interview, he stated Johnson shouldn't have cleaned up the car because that's illegal. We never took the position he was Mr. Clean. If he helped clean the car, he shouldn't have done that. That's a criminal offense. This
is when he was still the lawyer? Oh, my God.
It was never made public if that was why Johnson's grievances were filed or if there was another complaint. But I could obviously see why he would be upset. And if my attorney made those statements, I would absolutely also file a grievance. So James Johnson had maintained his innocence. Like I said, he spent 3 years in jail under a $1 million bond awaiting trial. He was released from jail under a reduced bond in September 2007 amid a high-profile campaign by the North Carolina Conference of the National Association of the Advancement of Colored People to have the case entirely dismissed. So if it hadn't been for them, he would have stayed sitting in jail until this went to trial and maybe still have been there because they would have figured some other thing to charge him for. So the NAACP claimed racial discrimination, prosecutorial misconduct, constitutional rights violations. They claimed Johnson should have been seen as a hero who helped solve the case. Brittany's family wanted to make it clear to them that race was not an issue. Because a lot of people kept saying they felt like Brittany and her family was pushing it so much because they were white, the suspects were black, like it was just this back and forth. But they wanted to make it clear that to them, that wasn't the issue. The family said nothing could be further from the truth. They went on to say that the NAACP President Rev. William Barber and U.S. Rep. G.K. Butterfield, who on the NAACP's behalf requested a federal investigation into whether Johnson's constitutional rights were violated, did so only to inject that belief into the case to sway the public opinion. So in 2009, the case was still going, and Brittany's family made another statement. The criminal case surrounding Brittany's death has become more about political motives and race rather than bringing her killer or killers to justice. The focus of the events has switched from the kidnapping, robbery, and rape and murder of Brittany to the so-called injustice that has been done to James Johnson. They continue on to express their disappointment and how the 3-year homicide case had been handled in the recent months. This was, again, back in 2009. The facts of the case are simple, the family said. One day, 2 teenage boys did something horrible and kidnapped Brittany. One has taken responsibility for his actions, and the other continues to deny his involvement and let the NAACP do his talking for him. The NAACP's actions and the news media's biased coverage of everything they have done has resulted in this case being forced to be disposed of as quickly as possible by our elected officials, the Willis family said. The letter also criticizes Forsyth County Assistant District Attorney Belinda Foster. She was the special prosecutor in the case. Willis's family said in the letter that Foster told them Johnson was definitely involved more than he admits, and that she told the family the charges were correct and that enough evidence was present and the case would be pursued. Unfortunately, due to the politics that have come into play, she has now changed her story, and the charges against James Johnson have been almost completely done with, the letter said. Now, Foster did dismiss the charges against Johnson because the lack of evidence to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he assisted in the crime. She did charge him with a reduced charge of accessory after the fact to murder. On February 16th, 2009, Johnson ended his trial by pleading no contest to misprision of a felony. So a no contest plea means a person admits no guilt, but acknowledges that prosecutors have enough evidence to likely win a conviction. Misprison of a felony means that he did not report a felony to authorities, and this is because of the 3 days he waited before coming forward immediately. Now, the Willis family did say they were okay with that because they were just at that point, it had been like 3 to 4 years, and they were just ready to move on. The judge accepted the plea and granted a prayer for judgment continued, meaning the court did not impose a punishment. Thus, he would not serve jail time. However, in the future, if he got in trouble for a crime, they could charge him with something involved. They could recharge him for this crime since his punishment was basically deferred. In regard,
he had spent 3 or 4 years in prison.
He had already been in jail for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
In regards to Johnson's sentencing, Meeks released another statement saying, "I'm happy for him," he said. "I hope he can still go to college like he's planning to do." Now,
probably not.
I feel like you should just shut the fuck up. You're the entire reason he lost his scholarship. He spent 3 to 4 years in jail. His whole life is like uprooted. Like,
did he ever say I lied?
Yeah, in the letter to the newspaper.
Oh, that was when he.
Yeah,
said
he
it.
recanted his whole statement and said, "I just said it because I was angry that he went to the police." Like, he was angry that Johnson ratted him out. So he told the police that Johnson helped him.
Yeah.
So in a statement, Johnson said, "Even though I'm technically free, I'm not free. This case is still tied to me. It's sort of bittersweet at the moment." Did he actually help Meeks? Did he not help Meeks? I mean, like, was he more involved than he says? We will never know. According to the Willis family, that judge said or whatever told them that there was enough evidence, and he took that plea that said there was enough evidence that could probably convict him, but he was still maintaining the fact he was innocent. Who knows? It's nobody else was there. Nobody else knows, but Meeks did say he made it up. So I would assume that he did, in fact, make it up. I feel bad for Johnson because he pretty much has lost his life. I mean, there's no getting the scholarship back. There's no getting those years back. So anyways, now the final man who was arrested. Julian Tyson Deans. He was the one that made the alibi. So he didn't go on trial to 2009, and I don't think he served any time in jail at the time. I don't think he went to jail because he just created the alibi. They didn't think he was part of the kidnapping and all that stuff. At his 2009 court trial, he was accompanied in court by his mother, aunt, and sister. He was originally charged as an accessory after the fact of first-degree murder. He entered an Alford plea to misdemeanor obstruction of justice on June 1st, 2009. So in an Alford plea, it's very similar to the misprision of a felony. A defendant pleads guilty while maintaining his or her innocence and admits in his or her best interest to take the plea deal because there is sufficient evidence that could find him or her guilty. He, too, received a prayer for judgment continued, meaning if he ever was charged with or convicted of another crime, the state could ask the court to impose an additional sentence in this Willis case. So prosecutors said that Dean was present when Meeks hid the gun used in the murder. They also stated that Meeks had admitted to him that he shot Brittany. He was sentenced to 45 days in the county jail, but that sentence was suspended, and Dean was awarded that prayer for judgment that I had mentioned that before. So the judge had spoken with the Willis family in advance, and they agreed that they were okay with the sentencing as well because, again, they wanted to move on. And at that point, Meeks had already admitted he did it alone. So they were content that Meeks was serving his life in prison. So Rocky Mount attorney Tommy Moore, who represented Dean's, told Superior Court Judge Walter Godwin that he felt Dean's involvement was more of a violation of a moral standard rather than a criminal act. If he is guilty of anything, it is a moral crime because he didn't come forward immediately, Moore said. There was
He's talking about Johnson or this other guy?
He's talking about Dean's because Meeks technically confessed that he shot him. He didn't see the body, but he saw Meeks hide the gun. Meeks confessed to him that he did it, and then he created an alibi for Johnson. Okay. So they're saying that he didn't really commit an actual crime. It was like more of a moral thing. Like he should have come forward and told the police what Meeks did. Like he wasn't involved in the actual crime.
Sure.
There was no physical evidence to tie Dean's to the crime or the crime scene. He was fully cooperative with the law enforcement. Moore went on to say that since his client's release from jail in November of 2004, he has lived with his aunt, uncle, and Carrie. He's held a job. He attained his high school equivalency certificate, and he is the primary custodian for his 2-year-old son. He will be better because of all of this, Moore said. The adversity allowed him to get out of a place where he was doing nothing and going nowhere. As for Willis's death, a stoic Meeks never mentioned it directly during an interview he did, referring to it with words such as the incident or the situation. He, however, did offer an apology to Willis's family and said he regretted it. He said, "I don't know how I allowed myself to get to that point," he said. "I regret everything about it. I wish I would have stayed home that day." In honor of Brittany's love to soccer, the Wilson Response Team organized a nonprofit, and it's the Brittany Willis Memorial Scholarship Soccer Showcase. Oh. It's they formed it in March of 2005, but the showcase didn't actually start happening until 2006, so this will be the 19th year it happens.
Wow.
And its purpose was to memorialize her and bring healing to the community following her violent death. Each year, the showcase raises money for a scholarship fund in Willis's memory. Sportsmanship is one of the main points of emphasis for the tournament, which draws teams from all over North Carolina and now is just affectionately known as the Brittany.
Oh, really? Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome. Oh.
Hundreds of young soccer players have played in this tournament through the years.
My little heart.
I know. The North Carolina Soccer Coaches Association has recognized the Brittany as the best high school soccer event in North Carolina.
That's amazing. Had you ever heard of it?
Mm-mm.
No.
But I'm going to read a letter from the Willis's family that's on the showcase's website.
Okay.
So it says, "Dear friends, it is with overflowing hearts that we say thank you to all members of the Wilson community who gave of their time, talents, and so much more to honor our beloved daughter in the Brittany Willis Memorial Soccer Scholarship Showcase. What started out as a small group of people organizing an event to honor Brittany's love of soccer developed into a celebration of the life she lived. We extend a special thanks to all members of the Wilson Response Team for organizing this event. All of these people will be forever remembered as a group who labored many hours to produce such a wonderful expression of love, not only to Brittany's memory, but also to the many friends and family who loved her dearly. They could not have done such a wonderful job without the support of the many local businesses that did not hesitate to help when we were called upon. Wishing all of you and yours grace, peace, and love, we remain. Sincerely, Randy, Judy, and Clay Willis.
Oh, that's so sweet. Wow.
I think that is just an amazing way to memorialize her doing something that she loved, giving a scholarship to other young soccer players.
Oh my God, yeah.
So if anyone wants to donate to the Brittany Willis Memorial Scholarship, you could do that at their website. They have a whole website for the showcase. It's literally thebritany.org, BRITTANY.
Y'all should go too if you like soccer.
Yeah, it's in North Carolina.
Yeah.
But it's the goal of the nonprofit organization is to provide additional funds to the Brittany Willis Scholarship Fund, which is open to all Wilson County high school graduates who will pursue post-secondary education. Individual and team donations go directly to the scholarship fund, and sponsored donations are used to like operate the showcase in general, like the games and all that kind of stuff. Anyways, so that's my story of Brittany.
Wow.
And the things that transpired. And Kenneth Meeks is still in prison. They did set a trial to be heard in 2025, I believe, or this year, to see if he could get the parole stuff, but they've already said no.
He's not.
Yeah.
He's going to be in there a while.
Yep.
Wow. That was, I love to hear like that when people turn it around, they're not turning it around. She's not coming back or anything, but that they created something that the community comes out in such a strong showing, and that it's called the Brittany.
The Brittany showcase.
It just breaks my heart and warms it all at the same time.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that was frustrating to listen to. I'm not sure where in there why I got so frustrated, but
the James Johnson stuff really frustrated me. There's one, the Wilson Times, I believe it was, has a whole archive of different like timelines for him. Like if you want to read about the jury selection issues that were faced, all the stuff that NAACP had to do to help him, all this kind of things. There was so much information about it, but I was trying to keep the focus really on like Brittany's case. Yeah. But there's links that are going to be in the resources that go to the archive. So, I mean, you can look up any of the James Johnson articles that were written about him. But I felt really bad for him if he truly didn't do it. And Meeks says he didn't. He said he literally just told the police he did it because he came forward. Because he did the right thing. And so because of that, he said, oh, he helped me. But the fact that that's all they had to go on when they had all this evidence that Meeks actually did it, like actual physical evidence, it's just so frustrating.
It is. And I'm sure as a black kid, he has to go, I need to go tell the cops that I did this, like that this happened. There's a girl that's dead, and I was a little bit a part of it, but because I was scared out of my mind, like
being threatened with a gun.
Right. He's probably like, I'm going to go to jail, but if I don't come forward, it's like, it's probably eating him up.
Either way, it wasn't looking good for him.
Yeah, it was eating him up, I bet. And imagine if they found something later and it
like his fingerprint on the car or something when he was cleaning.
He came forward, and then it just that's maybe what made me so mad. And I mean, it's just taking into account like this is a young black man. Whether people want to admit it or not, the justice system is a little bit skewed for young black men, you know, and so he tried to do the right thing. Yeah, that's frustrating.
Yeah.
That's frustrating.
So I am glad that they did the right thing and didn't charge him, even though he unfortunately lost those years.
He lost those years and the ability to go to college and all of those things. Yeah.
Now, he may have gone to college later on. I really don't know. I couldn't find much information.
Probably not on a soccer scholarship.
Right. I couldn't find much information of what he was doing nowadays. And the only thing I could find on Dean's was that he did have full custody of his son, had gotten his GED, and, those things. So, and that Meeks is still in prison. So
Meeks can just stay there and die. You can just die. Oh man, I don't know what I have for y'all next week. Might have an interview. We got a local story. I don't know. We might have to just be on location and do an interview. Big local story. Some of y'all have probably heard about it. And there's been development, so we're trying to kind of tell y'all all about it before it goes national. It's pretty close to being a national story. So we'll tell you all about it. But we'll tell you at least what we know. And there's also another story. There's a gentleman that's going to be executed by the state of Texas next week.
oh my gosh.
And I know his cousin. And yeah, I was like, hey.
These are things you tell me before we get on air so we could discuss.
I was like, hey, isn't this your family member? Let's talk. Anyway, so there's lots to talk about.
Right.
Anyway, but we'll just see you next week.
See something, say something.
See something, say something. See you next week.
Bye.
Bye.